Okay, let's just jump right in. We are embarking on a deep dive into one of the largest, most dynamic language families on Earth.
The Turkic languages.
Exactly. I mean, this is a family that acts as this vast cultural and linguistic bridge spanning just incredible distances.
It really is. From the Balkans, Eastern Europe, all the way across Eurasia, right up into Siberia, even reaching the Arctic Ocean.
It's immense.
And the view we're offering you today, this kind of family portrait, is really based on the monumental, incredibly detailed work of one of the West's most influential Turkologists, Lars Johansson.
His work really redefined how Western academia even approached this family.
It did.
So that's the shortcut we're providing. We're trying to extract the core, the groundbreaking insights he established about the very nature, the structure, and the history of this whole lineage.
And he wasn't just, cataloging data. He was using the Turkic languages themselves to change global linguistic theory.
So to appreciate that scope, we probably need to start with the geography.
You have to. We are talking about languages spoken across a territory that includes modern Turkey, Azerbaijan, the Caucasus, Iran, Afghanistan, Western and Eastern Turkestan.
And the massive regions of Siberia, the Volga area, it's just huge.
Within that space, we're counting about 20 standardized languages.
Yeah.
So think Turkey, Turkish, Kazakh, Uzbek, Yakut, and then the really complex outlier, Chuvash.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. If the territory is that huge, how certain are we that these languages are actually related?
That's the foundational question.
And not just, neighbors.
Right. And the answer is Turkic is definitely a proven language family. This is established through traditional comparative linguistics.
So just like we know English and Hindi are related.
Exactly like that.
Oh.
We know they all descend from a single ancestor we call Proto-Turkic. Now, for decades, there was some scholarly hesitation about Chuvash because its differences run so deep.
Mm-hmm.
But modern analysis confirms it. It's a genuine Turkic language that just branched off very, very early on.
What's fascinating here, though, is how politics seems to try and overrule that linguistic reality.
Always.
You mentioned 20 standard languages, but a lot of those were formalized or even kind of created in the 20th century.
Yes, often through pretty arbitrary political decisions, especially after the Soviet Union dissolved.
And that's where the debate comes from.
It's the source of endless scholarly debate.
Yeah.
You see this huge gap between the political definition of a language and the observable, objective reality on the ground.
So give us an example.
Take Karakalpak.
Linguistically, it's best viewed as a dialect of Kazakh. They're mutually intelligible, very similar.
But not politically.
Politically, it has been defined as a separate language with its own standards. Same with Dolgan in Siberia. Its speakers often see it as autonomous, even though it's essentially a dialect of Yakut. The state creates the label.
So if we just strip away those political labels for a moment and look purely at the linguistic splits, what are the main branches Johansson identifies? He lays out three key groups based on deep history. First, you have the Oghuz branch. That's the southwest group, and it includes Turkish and Turkmen.
Okay.
Then there's the Kipchak branch, the northwest group.
Mm-hmm.
That's Kazakh and Kyrgyz. And finally, the Uyghur-Karluk branch in the southeast, which includes Uzbek and modern Uyghur.
And then you have those two special cases.
Right, the really early branches. Halassa, a smaller, deeply conservative language in central Iran. And of course, Chuvash in the Volga region, which, as we said, broke away earliest of all.
So that structural split, you mentioned that deep divergence, leads us right into this core theoretical debate that Johansson really tackled.
Yeah.
This idea, this sort of ideological push that the entire Turkic family is really just one enormous language with a bunch of regional dialects.
Yes, it's often driven by kind of cultural nationalism.
So how does Johansson argue against that?
He counters it with a very pragmatic test,
Mm-hmm.
mutual intelligibility.
Can you actually understand each other?
Exactly. If it were one single language, the members of the family should be able to freely converse, and they can't.
Not at all.
A speaker of Turkish and a speaker of Siberian Yakut have, zero chance of understanding each other without training. That lack of conversation is proof of deep, early divergence. The split happened a long, long time ago.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. If there's this deep divergence, how do we explain the massive changes that happen when these branches interact with non-Turkic languages like Persian or Arabic or Russian.
Well, that brings us to Johansson's revolutionary theoretical breakthrough,
The code copying model.
the code copying model, which he formalized back in 1992.
And it gave us a much more surgical way to understand contact.
Right. He didn't just use the umbrella term borrowing. He showed that intense contact leads to predictable structural change through what he called code copying, and he separated it into two main types.
So the first type is what most people think of as borrowing.
Precisely. The first is general copy, or what he called blot copy. You borrow the whole unit, the sound, the material, the meaning. You just copy the word completely.
Like borrowing the word computer into Turkish?
Exactly. But the second type, selected copy, is where things get really fascinating.
This is where the structure of the language itself starts to shift.
Yes. Selected copy is where you only copy one specific feature. You keep the native word, but you copy its usage, or its meaning, or its frequency from the foreign code.
Give us that classic example with the word star.
Okay, so if you block copy star, you just get a loan word. But the native Turkic word for a celestial body is yıldız. Now, if, because of the influence of English, yıldız suddenly gains the secondary meaning of a famous person in entertainment, that's a meaning copy. The Turkic word is still there, but its semantic potential has been copied.
That is such a precise distinction, and the big what of this model is that Johansson proved this can affect every part of a language.
Yes, every domain. The traditional view, especially among Western linguists, was that sure, Turkic could borrow words, but its underlying structure, the syntax, the morphology, was somehow immune to foreign influence.
Particularly from Arabic or Persian.
That was the entrenched dogma, and Johansson proved it was false. Through relentless empirical study, he showed structural copying everywhere. Phonological systems, grammatical features, even the deep structure of the sentence can be subtly shifted.
He basically busted the myth of unborrowable grammar.
He did.
But if grammar can be copied, why don't languages just merge? Why does the structure still endure?
That's the critical follow-up. And Johansson was very clear. Even heavy pervasive copying does not lead to language shift.
So the language itself doesn't break?
Never. The abandonment of a language is a purely social phenomenon. It happens when communities decide, often under pressure, not to transmit the weak code to the next generation because it lacks prestige. The language doesn't die because it's broken or too mixed. It dies because the social chain breaks.
Speaking of structure that endures, let's transition to one of the most specific technical problems Johansson solved.
Okay.
This really blurry boundary between nouns and adjectives in Turkic. This was always a thorn in the side of traditional grammar. If I say altın yüzük,
A gold ring.
right, is gold an adjective describing the ring, or is it something else?
Traditional grammarians really struggled because they were trying to force Turkic structures into European word classes. The words look identical in form.
So what was Johansson's solution?
His detailed analysis, using data from all over, especially South Siberia, concluded that these are not adjectives modifying nouns. They are what he called identity apposition.
Okay, identity apposition. What does that mean functionally?
It's the difference between quality and substance. Adjectives describe a quality beautiful, large, old. Nouns used this way in identity apposition express composition or substance.
What it's made of?
Exactly. So demir kapı doesn't mean a door that is merely iron-like in quality. It means a door that is made of iron. It's about what the item is, not just what it looks like.
That just provides such a perfect internal logic. And he didn't just assert this, he gave us a practical diagnostic kit.
Absolutely. Concrete rules, and that's what makes his work so powerful for a learner.
What's the first test?
The first one, adjectives can form comparative and superlative degrees. Bigger, biggest. Noun modifiers cannot. You can't say more gold ring.
Right. It either is gold or it isn't.
Second test. True adjectives can be modified by adverbs.
Yes.
You can have a very cold day.
But you can't have a very iron door.
You can't. And the third one is the coordination test.
This one's my favorite.
You can't coordinate a noun modifier with a true adjective. You can easily say you bought a beautiful and expensive bracelet. Both are true adjectives.
But you can't say you bought a beautiful and gold bracelet.
It sounds fundamentally wrong because those two words are operating in different grammatical slots. Quality versus composition.
It's just so rigorous. It forces the theory to fit the language, not the other way around, and you don't get these insights from an armchair.
No, this comes from deep field work. Johansson spent serious time in places like Istanbul, Tashkent, Urumqi,
And he was following a long tradition.
a surprisingly deep one for Swedish fieldwork, actually.
Right.
It started way back in the 18th century with a Swedish officer named Philip Johann von Strahlenberg.
Oh, wow.
He was exiled to Siberia after a battle, and while he was there, he produced this monumental work that basically became the founding text of the field, linking Turkic and Uralic languages.
That's incredible. Now, switching gears just a little, there's a fascinating detail about the wider Turkish sphere that speaks to this complexity.
Ah, yes. Turkish Sign Language.
It's such a powerful illustration of the autonomy of language structure.
It really is. It is not just a manual version of spoken Turkish. It's structurally radical. It has its own unique morphology, its own complex visual classifiers.
And it doesn't map one-to-one with the spoken grammar.
It's not. Not at all. It lacks direct equivalence for the complex tense and aspect system you find in spoken Turkish. And this isn't a modern thing either. Records show a highly detailed sign language was used in the 16th century Ottoman courts,
It's an independent linguistic tradition.
with immense historical richness.
And that idea of enduring structure brings us to the future. Johansen stressed the urgent need for documentation.
Yes.
If the structure is so robust, what's the risk when people start abandoning the language socially, like you mentioned?
The risk is irreversible loss. Globalization pressures younger generations to neglect their local, lower prestige language for a dominant national or global one.
And when a language dies,
You erase variation and data that can never be recovered. Johansen was clear that we have to urgently document everything. The highly influenced variants, the low prestige dialects, the isolated languages, before they're just gone.
so if we synthesize his total contribution, it feels like he didn't just map a language family, he provided a whole new methodological toolkit.
That's it exactly. His legacy is that he refused to force Turkic material into theories that were designed for other languages, which had held the field back for so long.
Right.
Instead, he used the Turkic material itself, especially in areas like aspect and code copying, to test and advance general linguistic theory. He raised the status of Turkology on the global stage.
And that intellectual rigor leads us to the ultimate, still controversial question he addressed.
The wider family.
That highly debated Altaic hypothesis, the idea that Turkic is genetically linked with Mongolic, Tungusic, Korean, and Japanese.
And Johansen suggested that if that deep kinship does exist, you won't find it in the surface vocabulary, which is copied so easily.
So where do you look?
You have to look in the most durable, most structurally conservative parts of the language, the parts that resist copying the most.
The structural fortress of the language.
It lies deep within the complex verbal system. We're talking about the subtle morphemes, the smallest meaningful grammatical units that sit closest to the verb root. They express things like actionality, how an action unfolds, and voice.
So the core grammatical machinery of the verb.
Exactly. The system has remained remarkably robust, even in heavily altered languages like Chuvash. He believed this verbal complex holds the key.
And is that where research is going now?
It is. Researchers are finding striking similarities across the Turkic, Mongolic, Korean, and Japanese verbal systems right at this level. This is the crucial topic for future exploration. The most resistant parts of the structure may still hold the secret to proving a wider ancestral connection.
What a fascinating idea that the most resilient part of the language might hold the most ancient truth about its kinship. That is definitely something for you to mull over or explore on your own. What an incredibly deep portrait we've explored today.